Junior Caminero is the number one reason you should keep watching Race Baseball.
You are Locked On Rays, your daily Tampa Bay Rays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Rays podcast. Locked On Rays is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and we are Kevin and Ulises.
And we are lifelong Rays fans who've been podcasting about these Rays since 2019.
On today's show, Rays outfielder Johnny DeLuca suffers an injury, meaning more playing time for someone else, and we'll discuss that later on in the show. In a few minutes, we'll talk about the surprising improvement of the Rays bullpen, but we'll begin with the need for Junior Caminero to be a lifelong Ray.
Yes, we have to talk contract extension. I mean, this guy needs to be extended before the 2026 season gets started, because on Wednesday, on the getaway game, which the Rays, of course, they finally pulled out a series win, which hadn't happened in a long time.
Yeah, that gives me reminiscence of Grandpa, when did you last see a Rays series win?
And yeah, I'll tell you,
long, sir.
It's been a long time ago.
They almost didn't get it, but they got it.
They got it done, and Junior was a big part of that. 2-homer day. He gets to 30 home runs. I got a couple of tidbits here. The first one from Ryan Bass. He says, Junior is the first player in franchise history to record 20 doubles, 30 homers, and 75 RBI through his first 110 games of a season. He is the 10th player since 1901 to do so at age 22 or younger. What? Only 9 players had done that since 1901. It took Caminero 110 games to reach 30 home runs, second fastest by any player in Rays franchise history, behind Jose Canseco in 1999. But we know Jose Canseco did it in 77 games because, well, he was doing things that he probably shouldn't be doing. Right. But Junior isn't. This is the guy you extend. This is the guy that's the face of the franchise. This is a guy who's 22 years old. And I know if there are any detractors of Junior Caminero, the first thing they would say is, hey, look at his glove. It's sloppy. Well, right. Today, he had a tremendous play. Barehanded, threw across the diamond. Yandy picked it. Beautiful. I think it was in the 6th inning. There are flashes that he can be a really good defender at third. You know he's got the strength in that arm to pull off being a good third baseman, but it's the glove work. But guess what? He's 22 years old. There's enough time for him to get reps. There's enough time for him to increase that part of his game. But even at this stage, with his fielding at the 17th percentile in outs above average, he's a guy that you need to extend, not only through arbitration and a couple of years free agency, but he needs to be a Ray forever.
Yes, I don't disagree. I think the one consideration of that is, I don't know how much the Rays are looking and saying, hey, what is the new ownership group looking for? I mean, I would think that the ownership group would want to lock up Junior Caminero ahead of time if possible. And if you look across baseball, guys, young, talented guys are getting locked up left and right. I mean, of course, we saw it with Wander a couple years ago with the Rays, but it seems like the Red Sox are extending everybody. The Mariners, who we'll talk about on Friday's episode, are extending players. That seems to be becoming a theme, and you just hope that the Rays have, if this is their intention, that they've done their homework so they won't have a guy that, okay, I've got my fat contract and I'm going to rest on my laurels. I don't see that from Junior Caminero. Everything we've heard and taken in and read and watched is this guy wants to be better. He takes advice. He takes mentorship. He wants to be the best player that he possibly can. And I feel like if you plan to do an extension at a quote unquote team friendly rate, you better do it now because you're running out of time. You can't wait to do it in 2026 after he hits 38 dingers. I mean, if we go back and look, And again, it's a little splitting hairs to take from what he's done in 2023 to 2025. But if you add up those 3 seasons, of course, he had a cup of coffee in 2023, had a couple cups of coffee in 2024, and now a full season with the Rays in 2025. It's looking that way. But he's played a total in his career 160 games in a Rays uniform from age 19 to age 21. He has a total of 37 homers in those 160 games. So to me, this is a guy that is not just going to be a perennial 30 home run guy, but a 35 to 40 home run guy. The scouts were right, I guess.
The scouts were right, and it's incredible because that's, as a Rays fan, you don't want to. I told you, like in the beginning of the season, I was like, I don't want to hope or shoot for more than 25. He's already at 30 on August 6th, man. He's incredible. He's an incredible talent. And I understand what you're saying with the new ownership coming in, apparently in September, October time frame, that you don't know what they're expecting. But this is a guy that has no question marks on the value that you've seen from him,
right,
in what a whole full season and then parts of a couple more. This guy is incredibly talented, and from what he exudes, he doesn't look like the guy that's going to sign and then I'm not doing anything. He wants to be someone in this game. He likes the spotlight, and I think one of the biggest things that I've noticed from him in the growth, which obviously I do like to follow this up with Latino players, is how comfortable are you getting in front of a mic?
Right.
And Junior Caminero is getting more comfortable at the mic. And that, I don't want to sound like a Moneyball exec here and from the movie of like, hey,
how does he look in a pair of jeans?
Yeah.
What's his girlfriend look like?
Body language, man, it's huge. And the fact that after the game today, he just stood tall in that microphone, answered Ryan's questions like he understood it. He didn't have the interpreter translated for him. I thought that was fantastic, man. And you've seen that more and more throughout the season. And I really like that. That's growth in a human way. And that's somebody who wants to get better at literally everything he does.
Yeah, and I think that's, if we're going to be talking about a franchise player and face of the franchise, I mean, I feel like that is a little bit part of the gig is, can you do interviews and answer questions in English and interact with the fans in English, even if it's basic stuff? Yeah. I feel like that's kind of, a little bit part of the protocol nowadays. But, yes, does Junior Caminero still have things to work on? Absolutely. I don't know many 21, 22-year-olds who don't. Right. We can talk about the ground into double plays. We can talk about the on-base percentage. We can talk about the strikeouts at time. And even if he doesn't wind up being a great defender, or if he's league average or just below average, I feel like pretty much all that is marked out or evened up by the fact that he can give you 35 to 40 home runs. Because that's ultimately what the Rays lineup needs. We have enough versatile players. We have enough defenders. We have some slap hitters. We have some speedsters. But when there's a man or two on base, or you need a solo shot to tie the game or get the team the lead, who are you going to go to? And, I feel like it doesn't get talked about as often because we like to focus so much on the home runs. But, of course, you mentioned it with the statistics. 20 doubles. I mean, that's, a total of 50 extra base hits. If you look at the home runs and the doubles, I mean, it's pretty impressive stuff. And I would imagine
22 years old,
right,
Kevin. So you can only expect this. Hopefully, yeah, there's always, the little slump here and there in between your career. But if this is a guy that is showing this at 22, the world's your oyster, because now you've got so much experience backed into a young player that by the time he's 25, 28, he's going to look like a very savvy veteran. Like, I'm not comparing them, but like young guys that started at that age, the Acuñas, the Sotos, the Vladdies, like it's just
Longos.
Yeah, man. And again, everything he does offensively just screams that he needs to be extended before the 2026 season. And hopefully ownership change, barring and all that, or included rather, I think he needs to be extended in 2026. And maybe somebody that needs to be extended is the way the Rays bullpen has been pitching for the last 11 games.
This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the daily fantasy platform that lets you turn your football predictions into real rewards. Preseason, it's already heating up, and college football isn't far behind, if you didn't know already. And that means it's the perfect time to lock in your season-long more or less picks for the 2025 football season, all before week 1 kicks off. I've used Prize Picks now for a few seasons, and what I love is how simple it is. In fact, I can get a lineup in before my coffee finishes brewing. That's minutes, just a few minutes, and I can get it done. It's as easy as that. So go ahead, join me, and download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONMLB, LOCKEDONMLB, to get $50 in lineups after your first $5 play. Prize Picks, run your game. We are the Locked On Rays podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you for making us your first listen every day. Ulises, something I didn't think we would necessarily say much this season or of late is the bullpen. We've seen some improvements, namely what happened in Wednesday's getaway game against the Angels. For example, Griffin Jax got into a little bit of a jam, but got out of it with aplomb. And that's what you need from a player like that. That's why you go out and make an acquisition when the going gets tough and there's a little bit of pressure and the stakes are on the line. You have a guy like Griffin Jax who can find a way to get out of it. And I think his last pitch was 97 miles per hour, middle. And he was still able to generate a swing and miss on that.
That was probably one of the funnest relief outings of the year. Because it starts being kind of tough. You know, you got to hit, you got to walk, then the catcher's interference, and there's literally no outs. And you are hanging by a thread at 5-4. You already had Jax in the Dodgers series on Sunday, kind of, you know, not having a great outing as he allowed to run. But now you're thinking, oh, no, this is it. Of course, this is it. And This man just showed everybody that he's got a plum, many plums, and 3 Ks, man. But it wasn't him only, right? You know, you had Uceta, Clevenger, Baker. They combined for 3 innings. They all had a K each. Only 1 walk allowed. Fairbanks had 1 strikeout as well, and then 2 flyouts with a great catch by Mangum. But if you look at the numbers before today's last, today, the last 10 games, their ERA 1.66, WHIP 0.79 in 38 innings, 45 strikeouts, and 7 walks. Just impeccable work from the bullpen. And this is the kind of bullpen that they're going to need, not only through this very long road trip, but for the next 50 games, because it's go time, and that's the lockdown that they need to have. They cannot surrender any more late leads like they did in this 9-24 stretch.
Especially if the Rays are going to be cautious with a Joe Boyle or a Drew Rasmussen, or if there's a blow-up outing, or a guy's not looking great and you have to pull him after 4 1/3, something like that. You got to, at some point, be able to say, we got to fight for something. We got to give ourselves a shot. We can't just say, all right, well, our starter's out, so let's bring in a mop-up duty guy to give us a couple innings and we'll lose this 1-7-2 or whatever. Like, you need all the parts to come together. And maybe this is the scenario and the set going forward is you might have, we know the defined role of Pete Fairbanks, but maybe Griffin Jax is our new setup man, our 8th inning man going forward. Yeah. And maybe that puts the other guys in their position and gives, some of the B bullpen, if you will, members of that squad, a little bit of relief in the sense of they don't have to come in in as many high pressure situations, where we can leave that more or less to Griffin Jax and Pete Fairbanks for the time being.
And these guys that pitched today, I think they handled it like an A bullpen. And I like using Uceta in the beginning because Shane Boss only gives you 4. So so today was exactly what you're saying is you have to piece it together, and you're going to have to be perfect in these situations. And Uceta, Clevenger, and Baker give you the 5, 6, 7. Jax is now inputted into that 8th. And now, don't you feel better about Baker being in the 7th inning rather than the 8th inning?
Yes.
And Baker, I like the fact that he did use a couple more times than usual that fastball, that very powerful fastball that he has at the top of the zone, which we said at the beginning of that trade acquisition, that's exactly where he needs to live. Fastball up. The changeup is gross. You're not going to get hit on that thing, but you can't have that fastball in the same area. You gotta elevate it, and he did that today, and it's been great. But really, the turnaround for this bullpen in the last 10 games, I think one of the biggest pieces was Uceta, and Clevenger has been kind of steady the whole year.
Yeah. And a fun fact, too, this was on the Rays broadcast. The Rays are now 46-7 when leading after 7 innings. So you hope that, again, even if it's a 1-run lead or just a 2-run lead, that once you get to the 7th inning, you can take care of business. But the onus is then on the offense that you need to get yourself to a lead, which they were able to do today. I think they were up 4-0, and then it got a little squirrely at that point, but they were able to hold on to it and get the victory. And Griffin Jax, I think, is going to be a really key piece this year. And I'm not sure about his contract status, but
good question, Kev. So Griffin Jax has 2 minor league options. He is going to be ARB eligible next year and will be a free season. He will be a free agent rather after the 2027 season. So they've got this year and then a couple more after.
So they got a couple years with him, hopefully, if he keeps this up. And again, I think his stuff is so good. I mean, you just have to look at the numbers and the metrics. I think 75 strikeouts in 48 innings. Yeah, we can work with that. And if there's a little bit less contact made, that's a good thing, because as we've talked about with Griffin Jax, when contact is made, it usually gets hit pretty hard. But he otherwise does a great job of missing bats with all the offerings that he has. And I feel like in off-season spring training with Kyle Snyder will only help him and benefit him. And who knows, maybe they see future closer in the works. I mean, based on what he did against the Angels, that's something a closer has to do and is expected to do. So that's a little test run for him in that respect. If the Rays feel like, all right, Pete Fairbanks is too expensive, or they're just ready to move on and they feel like there's guys that can step up in his place. I mean, right now, I think that you probably have to hold on to Pete Fairbanks and some others if you want to compete in 2026 and beyond and have a reliable bullpen. But that was one of those moves that, I mean, we said it from the onset when he was acquired, was like, okay, this is at least a move that shows that you're giving an effort for this season and beyond. You're not just getting some prospect in low A that we haven't heard of. You're getting a major league ready player who might, for whatever reason, be a little bit underutilized or put into bad spots with the Twins, that can have success in Rays uniform.
And he's done exactly what he is supposed to do and improve that bullpen. And the numbers show that the bullpen has been incredible in the last 10 games at 4 Wednesdays. So you can add one more. So the last 11 games, they have been truly fantastic. And you're talking about stepping up. Perhaps somebody needs to be stepping up in the outfield as there's an injury to Johnny DeLuca. Have you ever decided at the last minute to head to a ball game with friends and family? I know Kevin and I have literally less than a week. We went to see the Dodgers, and maybe it's you who needs to do this, maybe against St. Louis, maybe against the Yankees. The Rays are in a long West Coast road trip, but when they get back, you can do that by using Game Time. Game Time makes it possible for you to save money on the tickets so you can spend the rest on the food, drinks, and merch at the big time. And remember, Game Time is the official ticketing partner of Locked On MLB. And the seat views right in the app before you buy, and you know exactly where you will be. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code Locked On MLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed.
Thank you for making Locked On Rays your first listen every day. We appreciate it. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, of course. Good vibes, mostly, if you're a Rays fan, winning 2 games against the Angels, and hopefully that momentum carries on against Seattle, a series we'll talk about on Friday's episode. But there was a little boo-boo, if you will, for the Rays, as Johnny DeLuca was removed from the game with left hamstring tightness, as if the Rays didn't have enough injuries already. Another one bites the dust. We know about Aranda. We know about Simpson, although Simpson was back in the lineup. And then, of course, the myriad pitching injuries as well. But DeLuca's now out, so I guess that means perhaps more action, more playing time, more outfield opportunities for persona non grata, for the most part, Chris Morel.
Could be. I think his home run was definitely huge. It was the game changer for Wednesday's game. So maybe that alongside the injury gives him a little bit of a reprieve. However, this is me, Kevin, saying, hold up. Maybe not so fast, Chris. I think there's somebody that they got to replace Chris Morel, and his name is Everson Pereira. And Everson Pereira, ever since he got traded from the Yankees, he's done nothing but hit at AAA Durham. He's hitting .357, a .438 on base, a .571 slug. Yeah, that's a 1.009 OPS. He's also making tremendous catches in the outfield. This is a guy who is just wanting to get called up. He had a little bit of a cup of coffee in 2003 with the Yanks, but really, he's a young guy. He's 24 years old. I think if there's significant time for Johnny DeLuca to be out, it's not only going to be a Chris Morel sighting. I think we might be able to see what Everson Pereira has to offer.
And I think they would have to add him to the 40-man.
I believe he's already in the 40-man.
Okay, he's already got 40-man, so that makes it a little bit easier from the Rays standpoint. Yes, I just checked it now. He is on the 40-man. So I guess the question is, let's assume we don't know the length of time that DeLuca's out. Hopefully it's just maybe a game or two and he can return to the lineup because, you know, in his limited time with the Rays this year, he has been a net benefit and a positive. And some of his offensive numbers have been a little bit surprising in a good way. I wasn't expecting all that. But again, small sample size. How much of a leash would you give for Chris Morel before you say, all right, we gotta pull the plug on this one and give Pereira a fair shake? Because if the Rays are in the hunt and in contention, I understand, and we've talked about our criticisms with Chris Morel, but you also wonder that, you know, Pereira's an unknown quantity right now, and how's he going to shake out, you know, being called up? And is he going to be a factor right away, or is he going to struggle and have to get sent down and be on the Durham shuffle? I will say this, like, what did Chris Morel strike out 6 consecutive times before hitting that home run?
That's correct. And then struck out the next time after he hit the home run.
Would you be okay if you knew this was Chris Morel? He would strike out 4, 5, or 6 consecutive times, and then in the 6th or 7th at bat, he'd hit a home run and then proceed to strike out 6 or 7 more times, because that seems like the trajectory that we're on with him, unfortunately.
Seems like we know that's probably what Joey Gallo's career with the Yankees was, and he wasn't very much beloved there in the Bronx, although many people are not. I mean, they will boo literally Mariano Rivera.
Yeah.
So,
well, I mean, I'd be okay with Chris Morel if he had, you know, the historic on-base percentage of Joey Gallo, but that's just
there's so many things. Yes, but like There was a line for Pat Burrell. There was a line for Yoshi Tsutsugo. There was a line for Hideki Matsui. There was a line for Alex Jackson. There is a line
There is a
for
line that
Christopher Morel.
Yeah.
Now,
But it feels like with some of those guys, the Rays give him a little bit more long of a leash. Like for Yoshi, we kind of knew pretty quickly that, yeah, this guy can't hack it, isn't cutting it. But hey, we gave him a 2-year, $12 million contract or whatever it was. So we got to try to prove ourselves right. And I feel like that's kind of what they've been doing with Chris Morel of, hey, we traded an all-star, 30 home run all-star for him. So we got to put him on the field enough to where he can hopefully manufacture something and be a little bit of a success before we call it quits with this one.
I think that's the Rays' MO with, except for Matsui. Matsui was a pretty clear, hey, he's got nothing in the tank left. But with Pat Burrell, he spends the whole 09 season with the Rays and then begins to 2010 until they're like, you know what, fam, this is it. Yoshi Tsutsugo, he signs in 2020, has a horrible time, obviously, with the pandemic definitely affected him.
Right.
But yeah, just a short season and then a little bit of 2021 and then see you later, bro. I think Alex Jackson had a big stay with the Rays last year. I think with Morel, he already had a little stint. I think they didn't take that into account. They were like, look, it was a trade, a lot of moving parts. He was new to the team. That's like,
yeah, there was kind of bad juju on the team as it was.
No need to even put that into the Excel spreadsheet. That's just a wash. So if that's a wash, then it does feel like Christopher Morel is here to stay, no matter if a hot Everson Pereira is hitting a AAA, no matter if DeLuca isn't actually injured enough to go to the IL. I think Morel is here to stay.
Yeah, it's tough because I think at some point we're going to have to see what Pereira can do. I mean, he is on the 40-man for a reason, and you did trade him for a reason to be able to hopefully make an impact down the line one day. But with Chris Morel, it's obviously the strikeouts are frustrating, whether it's a swinging strike or a called strike. But for me, like if he doesn't do anything within the first pitch or when he has one strike on him, to me, it's a dead at bat. It's a gone at bat. Once he has 2 strikes, I feel like it's pretty much a lost cause at that point. It's a lost cause for most players, but it seems like even more so for him.
It's tough. It's a tough watch once he's got a couple, a strike or two. Like and like you're saying, that's easy math for a lot of baseball players being behind the count. Obviously, it's the worst type of numbers for them offensively. But with Chris Morel, it's like that on steroids. It's rough because you want him to succeed. You want him to be the guy that he was with the Cubs, and even Caminero said that. With Ryan Bass after the game, like he talked to Christopher after that home run, and he told him, I want you to be that same guy that you were with the Cubs. You've got the talent to do it, so go out there and do it. So yeah, hopefully he does do it. And I think hopefully Johnny DeLuca's injury is not too bad, and he'll be able to go back to the lineup as soon as possible.
It's funny, with Chris Morel, I think it would be, and maybe I'm simplifying it too much, he does hit the ball hard. He has a good bat speed. I don't know if I've seen him choke up on the bat or like go from an A swing to a B swing with 2 strikes. Like,
nope.
That's something that probably should be addressed and focused on at some point. Meanwhile, former persona non grata offensively, Taylor Walls, must be kind of behind the curtain saying, hey, at least people aren't crapping about my offense. They're focusing on Chris Morel. Because in all respect to Taylor Walls, he has picked it up offensively this season. I don't know if I ever would see him hit, a 220 average and doing, I wouldn't say damage, but showing some productivity from both sides. As
he's no longer the weak guy in the lineup. I know Morel had a home run, but right now I would watch a Taylor Walls at bat more than a Christopher Morel at bat. But you know what? Maybe people think differently, and we want to hear you guys down in the comments. Really good Friday episode coming on. Kevin, talking about the Mariners.
Yes, we do. In the meantime, thank you for making Locked On Rays your first listen today. For your second listen, check out Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night, all season long. Local analysis brought to you on a national scale. You can find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to